Good morning. It is 9:01 a.m. on February 12th, 2014, and this meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority Board is now in session. Kathy, are there any public comments? No public comments. Item 3, discussion and action on the election of the CRRMA officers for A, Vice Chair, B, Treasurer, C, Secretary, and D, Alternate Secretary. As the board knows, we are required by our bylaws to basically elect a slate of officers every February. However, we may have some new board members as soon as potentially next month. Is that correct, Mr. Tejas?
Yes, sir.
I believe there are some nominations that the mayor is currently looking at and potentially a slate of candidates that he may propose. So I'm going to propose that we just continue with the current slate of officers as it exists today and take a look at if we need to redo the board in the nominations come the March or April meeting. Is there a motion from the floor to leave the officers as currently as they currently serve? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We have elected the current slate of officers as they currently exist for the Vice Chair, Treasurer, Secretary, and Alternate Secretary. Do we need to identify those for the record, Mr.
I think
Tejas?
that'd be best. Yes, sir. Please.
Okay. Vice Chair, Mr. Adame. The Treasurer,
Mr. Marcus.
Mr. Marcus. Thank you. I was having an issue. The Secretary, Ms. Melendez, and the Alternate Secretary is Rosario Holguin. So, for the record. Adoption of the minutes for the CRRMA board meeting of January 22nd, 2014. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The minutes are approved for the CRRMA board meeting of January 22nd, 2014. Item 5, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the Executive Director to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Texas Department of Transportation regarding the development of the Loop 375 Border Highway West Extension Project. And that backup is included in the packet. As you know, this is something we've been working on since approximately the December time frame. We have authorized Mr. Tejas to execute the memorandum. Do you have it, Susan?
No.
If you push the tech support, they can come on over here. Hit the agenda right here, Ralph. Sorry, we're having a bit of technical difficulties. Could you help Ms. Melendez? While we're getting that up, basically it involves the memorandum of understanding with TxDOT in regards to the transfer of the funds for the Border Highway West project. And we had already authorized our Executive Director, Mr. Tejas, to execute the memorandum of understanding that was looked at and approved by the board back, I believe, in our December or January meeting. However, there were a few changes to that particular MOU, and that's why it's back on the agenda today that Mr. Tejas will cover for us. So, Susan, are you?
I am.
Rosario? Super. Mr. Tejas?
Thank you. Raymond Tejas, Executive Director. As the Chair mentioned, the Board authorized the Executive Director to execute the Memorandum of Understanding as long as that Memorandum of Understanding was in line with the term sheet that was approved by this Board. Since then, there have been a couple of revisions to some of the terms that were approved by this Board in the term sheet, and I'd like to highlight those. There are actually two. So that actually goes to why I wasn't able to execute the Memorandum of Understanding. So yes, sir. Sorry about that. So under Section 3D, there's a revision there which refers to TxDOT's ability to waive tolls in the event of I-10 reconstruction or other types of activities. Originally, this provision essentially said that if TxDOT waived those tolls, the RMA would simply be out those revenues and out those toll operations costs. They've since made a concession, which I think is good, that essentially says that they will make accommodations for the costs, the toll operations costs, in the event that they decide to waive tolls on the facility, which is, I think, great for us. The other major change is the inclusion of a new Section 8, which deals with the payment of the project O&M expenses. Originally, this provision was not included in here. We have a provision in the MOU and in the term sheet that spoke to the use of a paying agent when we're dealing with the capital funds that will come down from TxDOT in the amount of exactly $600 million. However, what we did not have was the use of a paying agent for toll revenues as they are generated. So Section 8 deals with the use of that paying agent and the flow of funds in terms of revenues. So all of that is laid out in Section 8. So Section 8 is the second addition. So with that, you've seen the remainder of the terms through the term sheet. And of course, subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of this item.
Any questions for Mr. Tejas?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item number 5 is approved regarding the execution of the Memorandum of Understanding. Item 6, discussion and action on a board resolution to authorize the executive director to execute a funding agreement with the University of Texas at El Paso as it relates to Phase 1 of the proposed bike share. And I believe what we're looking at here is originally in the agreements with UTEP, we were talking about where they would be located, and I believe UTEP is looking for at least one bike station to be located on the UTEP campus. Is that correct, Mr. Tejas?
That's absolutely correct. So the revision that you see before you on this particular item from the prior times that we've discussed this is the inclusion within Exhibit A of the following, which refers to specifically the actual locations for the bike stations. We've added, provided, however, that at least one station shall be located on the UTEP campus, and that was at UTEP's request. We did not have that in there before, and that's, I think, a substantive change, so I wanted to make sure and bring that back and make sure that this board was aware of that. Now, I think that this is, I'm very comfortable with this because of the fact that UTEP is providing capital funds for this program, and I'm thoroughly comfortable. We have always intended to place at least one station on UTEP campus. So this just clarifies it, makes them comfortable, and I'm okay with it as well.
Basically, as they are contributing, I believe, $20,000 to the project, and there was always the intention to put the bike share facility at UTEP. They just want to make sure that that actually happens.
Correct.
Any questions for Mr. Tejas? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Item number 6 is approved. Item number 7, discussion and action on a board resolution to authorize the executive director to execute work authorization number 21 with Atkins North America, Inc. as the CRRMA's general engineering consultant for the provision of various pre-development services necessary to advance projects identified within the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. Mr. Tejas?
So this item, as you know, under the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan, the RMA will play a couple of roles on specifically what are referred to as the county projects. However, prior to issuing debt and actually beginning the engineering work on each of these projects, we need to spend a little time to figure out exactly where these projects are in their various phases of development. Some projects, for example, are not yet in the MPO's long range in the MPO's plans. Some require right-of-way acquisition, some require environmental, and some have actually some of the design work has already been completed. So what we need at this point is some pre-development work to help us with the development, with really a kind of a guide that will determine where each of the projects are, which will then guide us in development of each of these projects. So that's really what we're looking at here. Part of it also will be helping us to develop the procurement documents and the processes necessary for us to actually go out and hire engineering firms, environmental firms, or whatever types of outside services that we need to actually pursue these projects. And lastly, I would mention that part of these project descriptions, the project estimates, and all the work that we're anticipating here in a very general sense will help us as we develop our bond documents that would be used for the vehicle registration fees, and also the state infrastructure bank loan that we are developing for the TRZ, Transportation Reinvestment Zone project. So all of this pre-development work is what you see under this particular item.
A couple of notes as well. The Vice Chair and I have talked to Mr. Tejas about working to look at expediting these projects. We'd like to potentially let as many of these projects in 2013 as possible. So 2014, I'm sorry, thank you. 2014 is possible. There is a number of different hurdles that we have to take a look at in regards to whether right-of-way has been acquired, whether alignments have been set, what's happening with the environmental, different questions on the type of environmentalists that are put in place. So Mr. Tejas is currently working with our GEC on that today. We've also asked that Mr. Tejas rely heavily on our pre-qualified list to try to work on these particular projects that we will be developing for the county, for the CMP, to utilize that pre-qualified list. And I understand, Mr. Tejas, that there was some TxDOT requirements in regards to approving that pre-qualified list?
Yes, sir. And I anticipate a response from TxDOT within the next day or two.
Super. So hopefully we'll have that done, and depending on what phase the projects are, we can reach out for that pre-qualified list and then use some of the various engineering firms that have expressed an interest with working with the RMA. Any questions on item number 7?
I don't have a question, but I have a recommendation. When we get to the point, I would like to have a status report of all those projects that you mentioned, various points in the development phase. And at an appropriate point, I'd like to have them posted on the webpage as well for information.
Absolutely.
Mr. Tejas, do you think you might be able to update us next month in regards to where we stand? I've gotten a preliminary update on kind of what's available. There hasn't been a whole lot done on a lot of projects. Mm-hmm. Other, like East Lake and Waco Tanks, there's been more done. So they're in basically various stages of completion, some with a fair amount of work, some with almost none. So.
Right.
Yes, sir. Actually, what I could do is bring a complete briefing to the board next month. We can talk about, and we've kind of broken this into a couple of tracks. One deals with the issuance of debt, the State Infrastructure Bank loan, and the bond issuance. So we can brief you on that, where we are and what our timelines look like for that. And then the other is this section, which really breaks the projects down, identifies where they are in their phases of development. So we can bring those two briefings to you next month.
All right. Thank you.
Sir.
And then kind of what we can do to expedite those projects.
Exactly.
Is there a motion to approve item number 7?
I make the motion to approve item number 7 as presented.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item number 7 is approved. Item 8, presentation, discussion, and action to accept the fiscal year 2013 annual audit per the recommendation of the CRRMA Finance Committee. Mr. Tejas?
This, as you all know, the Regional Mobility Authority is required by statute to have an outside firm provide an annual audit for us. We went through a procurement several years back and brought on the firm of Clifton Larson Allen. Today we have with us Janet Pacheco Morton, who will be providing a presentation to you on the audit. And I would mention also that this was brought to the Finance Committee Monday. And the recommendation out of that was to move it forward to the full board, recommending acceptance. So with that, I'll ask Ms. Pacheco to brief you.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, members of the board, Mr. Chairman, for having me here today. Again, my name is Janet Pacheco Morton, and I was the principal on the audit of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority audit as of August 31st, 2013. That's the fiscal year we audited. So today I'm going to provide the audit results to you, and I believe you have the presentation in front of you. I'll go quickly over the agenda. Today I'll cover the audit opinions, which is primarily the outcome that you're looking for as a result of the audit. I'll go over the federal programs that were tested. Also go over, thank you, great. I'll also go over the required communications that we as auditors are required to communicate to the governing body of the organization. There were some new accounting standards that were implemented this year and some that will be coming up to be implemented in the upcoming year. And I'll go over our recommendations based on the results of our audit. So the most significant outcome of an audit is obviously the audit opinions. And we render 2 opinions. One is over the financial statements and the footnotes to the financial statements. And that includes all of the financial information as well as the disclosures that discuss the financial information within the financial statements themselves. The second opinion is over the single audit, or that's a compliance audit over your federal programs. And that audit covers whether the authority is in compliance with grant agreements and federal requirements as well as state requirements. I'm happy to say that we issued an unmodified opinion over both of these, on both of these items. An unmodified opinion is basically a clean opinion, the best opinion that the entity could achieve as a result of the audit. Now, this is a little bit different language than you're used to hearing. This terminology used to be unqualified. Unmodified means the same thing. It's just a change in language.
Is that a change that's required by your firm for all firms?
It's a change that's required by for all firms, and it came from the AICPA.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The major federal program that we tested was Program 20.205. This is the federal catalog number, and it is related to the Recovery Act and Non-Recovery Act highway planning and construction funds. Total funding was $16.2 million for the year, and this is a program we tested. Some required communications. The first is our responsibility. Our responsibility as auditors is to issue an opinion over the financial statements. All of the financial information and disclosures are the responsibility of management. I just wanted to clarify that. We had no new accounting policies that were implemented during our year, but we did have one new pronouncement that was implemented. And this is Government Accounting Standards Board Pronouncement number 63. And the main change to your financial statements in the current year is, again, terminology. In the past, you're used to seeing net assets as a category within your balance sheet, and that is basically the equity at the end of the year for the authority. That now is referred to as net position. An upcoming pronouncement, GASB number 65, is having to do with deferred inflows and outflows within your financial statements, and basically changing some items and categories within your financial statements and what they're called. One of the significant items that will change for the authority is bond issuance costs. Bond issuance costs are currently capitalized and amortized over the life of the bonded debt. That will change. You'll see a restatement next year. All of those costs are included in your expense categories in your income statement going forward. So that will be one change that you'll see.
Are they still amortized over the life of the debt, or?
No, they will no longer be amortized. You'll expense them the year that you incur them. Some significant accounting estimates that I want to draw your attention to within the financial statements. One of them typically is allowance for doubtful accounts, but the authority deems all of the receivables to be fully collectible, so you won't see an allowance within your financial statement. The amortization of bond issuance costs is about $200,000 a year. And then amortization of intangible asset, which is all of the construction costs that are not reimbursed by TxDOT that were paid primarily with a bonded debt. Those are capitalized as an intangible asset and then amortized over the life of the debt.
So the bond issuance costs that we were currently amortizing over the life of the bond, do all those have to be, whatever's left, does that have to be expensed in 2014?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
So we'll see a larger expense because of bringing all that all of that issuance cost into 1 year.
Yes, that's correct. We had some significant audit adjustments during the course of our audit. The first two are related to GASB 60 adjustments, and GASB 60 is the statement that required the authority to capitalize all the construction costs that were unreimbursed as an intangible asset. So the first entry was to get you to the prior year number. The intangible asset as of August 31st, 2012 was about $174 million. So we rebooked that because the city does not book these adjustments on the books of the authority. The second has to do with current year amortization in about $10.7 million. And then $20 million is the expenditures that the authority made for construction projects that were reimbursed by TxDOT, and those are considered transfers out of construction and process to the Department of Transportation. So they do reduce your net position balance, but they're not in your expense categories, they're in your transfers out category.
And these were on the city books, is that correct, in regards to the particular funds as our fiscal agent for the RMA?
These were on the books as expenditures, and we reclassified them to transfers out, correct. The last significant adjustment has to do with reclassification of $2.5 million from federal revenue to deferred revenue. And this is with regards to the last draw for the federal grant, and the authority did not expend the money in advance of receiving the revenue. So we reclassified it to deferred revenue, and that will get recognized as soon as the authority spends that money.
If I understand correctly as well, Ms. Morton, I believe at the end of the day, all of the numbers from an accounting standpoint were correct. The issue was with how some of the numbers were classified, and during your audit, you went through and, according to the audit adjustments here, reclassified those particular numbers, but they didn't affect the overall accounting numbers. Is that correct?
For the most part, yes. We had some other adjustments that did affect the numbers. They were not significant enough to bring to the board.
Okay.
Some additional disclosures is whether we had any disagreements with management, and I'm happy to say that we did not have any disagreements. We did not consult with other independent auditors, nor did the authority, as far as we know. And that would be with regards to, let's say, if we had a disagreement about an accounting issue. And we had no issues discussed prior to retention, which means we did not have a discussion in our office as to whether we should retain the authority as a client or vice versa. We did encounter some difficulties in completing the audit. The first difficulty was we received initially an incomplete trial balance, which is all of the accounts of the authority from the city of El Paso. We subsequently received an adjusted trial balance, and then there were additional entries that were required to be made to that trial balance in order to prepare it for audit. So we do have some recommendations related to these difficulties. And then lastly, we did reclassify specifically revenue amounts into the proper categories for financial statement presentation. The recommendations directly relate to those difficulties, and the first recommendation that we have is that the authority work with the city to develop an account structure that allows the authority to properly report all of the categories of revenue specifically in the appropriate categories within the financial statements. We also recommend that monthly reconciliations be performed, and really to formalize those reconciliations to ensure that the trial balance that the city has is complete and accurately reflects the transactions of the authority. And we ask for that to be done on a monthly basis. I'm sure that will help with reporting processes internally as well as your annual audit.
Mr. Tejas, would the city perform those monthly reconciliations for us?
Actually, what we're anticipating is our outside CPA firm, Peña Briones, working with the city very closely to
So
provide those.
on a monthly basis for those reconciliations, so at the end of the year, we don't have any of this reclassification?
That's right. That's the intent. And I'd mentioned there have been a number of changes at the city, on the city side, in terms of personnel and processes that I think will help us as we go forward. And speaking to the first item as well, the city went through a re-implementation of PeopleSoft, which is their accounting system, which in the process they actually collapsed all of our funds, which drove a lot of the reclassification that we had to do, so that we don't anticipate that to be an issue next year. But we are working with the new staff, and there have been several staff changes in terms of who's assigned to the RMA and what their duties are. And I think so far we've been very happy with how they're working with us and the relationship that we're developing with them. So I think we're going to be good going forward.
Ms. Morton, you mentioned a couple of adjustments that weren't significant enough to bring to the board. Can you tell me what that threshold is for significance, and can you tell me what those adjustments were?
We typically don't disclose the thresholds, only because of the risk factors that we we utilize to audit the authority and other entities. However, I can give you an example of an entry that we did make. They were mostly accrual entries. One was an accrual entry to record interest income and back out the prior year interest income, and the net of that adjustment was about $300,000. So it was not a material amount to the authority.
Was that plus or minus?
I believe it was increasing expenditures.
Increasing expenditures?
Yes.
Mr. Tejas, could you provide to the board maybe a listing of, Mr. Marcus, did you get to review those in the Finance Committee?
No, we didn't actually review the adjusting entries.
Okay. Would you suggest we go to that level of detail, or is that, or are you comfortable kind of with what we're looking at here today?
No, I would suggest we rely on Janet's materiality threshold that she's developed in her audit, and there's a reason for that. We're going to spend a whole lot of time looking at a whole lot of little adjusting entries, and they're little in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. And probably, if there was something that was materially wrong, she would let us know if she found it. So I really don't see the point.
All right, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Did you say 300,000 was not significantly significant?
Right, as far as materiality for the fund goes.
Well, you develop a materiality threshold. I'm not an auditor, she is, but I remember from school. You develop a materiality threshold. You want to develop something so that you're not looking at every little tiny number.
I understand that, but 300,000 is not a little. Or
It
maybe
is in
I don't
relation
know.
to our financial statements taken as a whole. That's the issue. So.
And just to clarify, these other adjustments that we did not include in our presentation, they were not errors necessarily, they were accruals, which means that they're non-cash items as far as the authority is concerned. They're just accruals to ensure that your assets and liabilities are properly reflected at end of year.
Okay. So, and I guess are we in sync now with the city so we don't have these issues going forward?
We believe so.
Okay, so we shouldn't have all these reclassifications next year, right?
But we won't have the reclassifications unless, for some reason, they have another issue with their system. That was simply the reimplementation
understand. So
issue that
that
we
is-
had.
okay.
That they
Was
had.
Peña Briones working on our financials last year as well, as all our numbers were collapsed
Well-
prior to us giving them to Clifton Larson for the review or the audit?
Well, the collapse we found out after the fact. So the city didn't notify us about the collapse. They didn't, and then they created new funds for us and didn't tell us that. So the way that I actually found out was I was trying to issue payments for certain contractors, and they were all in error.
And when we're
So-
talking about collapse, let's be clear, all we're looking at doing is we had all of our assets in different funds, and they just put them all in one number. Is that correct, Mr.
Correct.
Tejas?
Yes, sir.
So, I'm an A&M graduate. I like to use my hands. It's easier for me. So,
Right.
Is there any questions before we let Ms. Morton continue?
Thank you. As far as completion procedures, we are currently doing our internal firm quality review over the test work and the financial statements, and we expect that to be completed this week. And also, we typically obtain management representations, which is a letter from management stating that they disclosed all of the information that should be recorded within the financial statements. And then also management approval of the financial statements, and I believe that is in process. Their review is in process. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Any questions for Ms. Pacheco-Morton? Was there anything, it appeared here, everything checked out, there is no significant concerns, if I understand the gist of what was presented today, is that correct?
That's correct. Nothing that I haven't presented to you already. I do just want to mention that Raymond keeps very detailed records and subsidiary schedules related to each project, and that really helped us to determine whether the trial balance was complete or incomplete. So our reliance really was more on the records that Raymond keeps rather than the trial balance itself, and I just believe that going forward, having these recommendations implemented will really help the authority.
I agree with you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your service to the RMA. Ms.
Thank
Tejas,
you.
is there anything else we need to talk about there?
Well, I would request a motion that I think will come from the Finance Committee Chair.
The Finance Committee met with Ms. Pacheco over the telephone on Monday, and we are forwarding a request to accept the 2013 audit report as presented by Ms. Pacheco today.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The audit report is accepted. Thank you, Ms. Pacheco.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute and submit the required annual compliance report to TxDOT. Mr. Tejas?
Yes, this item you may recall from last year. This is a fairly new requirement that came from the Texas Department of Transportation, whereas prior to last year we had to submit a number of reports throughout the year. They've consolidated all of that and actually changed some of the reporting requirements. So what we are required now to provide is mainly this compliance report to TxDOT, which you see included in your packet. So subject to your questions, I would recommend approval to authorize me to submit this compliance report.
Is there a motion to approve? All those in favor? All those opposed? Item 9 is approved. Item 10, update, discussion, and action on the Executive Director's report for A, the Downtown Parking Study, B, the International Bridges Operations Study, C, to Cesar Chavez Express Toll Lanes, and D, options for the CRRMA's annual report. Item A, Mr. Tejas.
So with items A and B are actually simply just updates to let you know that we are moving forward with the kickoff meetings for each of those studies. I'm very excited to tell you that for the downtown parking study, we're actually having the kickoff meeting tomorrow. And we've got, obviously, that's the project where we will be evaluating a particular location here near City Hall for the potential development of a parking facility. We've partnered with the Downtown Management District and the City of El Paso on that particular project, so I'm excited to start that one tomorrow, officially, I should say. We've been collecting data and putting that information together for our consultants for some time now, but again, tomorrow is the actual kickoff date.
When will we actually, when's the completion date, or when will we look at the results of that study?
This one, I believe, is 4 to 6 months, but let me check on that, and I'll provide something to the board.
Raymond,
Yes, sir.
with the kickoff, what is that? I mean, you're saying you're excited to kick off the meeting tomorrow. Is that?
So the kickoff, essentially when you have a study like this, you'll have a kickoff meeting which brings in all the major stakeholders. So we've got Downtown Management District, I've invited the county, the City of El Paso, any and everybody that is either a stakeholder or part of the project team itself. So we've got staff from Downtown Management District, all the folks that will be plugged into the process as we move forward. The outside consultant lays out where we're all headed, makes sure we're all in line, and then really begins the work at that point formally. So that begins tomorrow. The International Bridges Operations Study, same scenario. We've got the kickoff meeting for that one scheduled for next week, I believe, or actually the 25th of February. That one, as a reminder, we are developing an operational study of the international ports of entry that are owned and operated by the City of El Paso. So that one, we've got the kickoff meeting with the major players within the bridge division, including Jane Shang and Ted Marquez as the interim bridge director. So I'm excited about that one as well. We've been collecting data from the bridge division for some time now, but the official, as I mentioned, kickoff meeting begins on the 25th. So I'll keep you apprised as we go through these, as we develop these studies. Yes, sir.
For the public's information and for my recollection, can you explain to us the expected products or the main points that we'll be looking at, item number B, International Bridge Studies?
The end result of that really is a report that we will provide to the city that will outline the current processes that the city utilizes to operate its international bridges, plus essentially a checklist or an action list for implementation of efficiencies. So that could include anything from technology upgrades to staffing changes to organizational restructuring, all of that sort of thing. So it's really watching the process from start to end and detailing out what makes sense, what could be improved upon, and going from there, and really developing a report that they could actually take and implement at that time. That's what we're developing.
Just a reminder, I think we talked once before about downtown parking and EV chargers, and just wanted to emphasize the importance of, if we're going to talk about downtown parking and structures, that it's important that we include a number of EV chargers all around downtown.
Absolutely, and that has been discussed with the parking outside consultant.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. I'll make sure and mention it tomorrow as well.
Okay.
I only see those really at one place, just at the airport. That's the only other location I see those electrical vehicle charges.
No, the chargers exist all over UTEP. They exist in the Glory Road parking garage. They're at the airport, and I think all the housing authority locations have EV chargers
I believe
that they
so.
opened up last August.
Good, I'll pay more attention. Thank you.
So,
This kind of information, I guess for some of us may not know where it's at. Is there a central place where we can have?
Yes, the city of El Paso, through their sustainability division, maintains all that information.
Excellent. All right, thank
And I
you.
believe you can find it on their website.
Okay.
So under item C, the Cesar Chavez Express toll lanes, I figured I would bring a very brief update in terms of that particular project. As you know, we opened on January 10th, so we've been open just a little over a month. What I thought I'd share with you today is some information related to the issuance of tags. Through February 5th, there have been 303 accounts created and 468 toll tags issued. So that's a fairly significant increase. If you remember, I provided you with an update that through the end of January, we had 161 accounts created with 261 tags issued. So we've jumped from 261 in terms of tags to 468 through February 5th. So, and I'm receiving calls I would say every day. I'm getting at least one call asking where they can get tags. A bunch of folks are being referred by ACE, I should mention, to us directly so that we can help them get tags. Along these lines, I understand that the accounting procedures have been set up with the City of El Paso for utilization of their one-stop shop, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to issue a press release and announcement next week that the one-stop shop will be accepting cash for not only toll tag transactions but also pay by mail. So I hope to share that with you next week as well.
Will it actually be open next week, Mr. Tejas?
That's the intent. I'm
Okay.
hopeful.
Well, I won't steal your thunder. We'll let that go out.
Yeah, I
when it
probably shouldn't have
does.
said that right now because that's
So-
now that kind of loses its weight. But
Raymond?
anyhow, I thought yes, sir.
On the, are we working with the city, Sun Metro, to maybe use some of their
Not
centers throughout
not
town?
yet. So we've reached out to the City of El Paso, of course, and we've asked them for other locations. We've kicked around a couple of ideas, and we're working on that. I also mentioned this to Commissioner Leon when I was speaking at his community meeting, and he was open to the idea. And he's actually he was going to speak with the county attorney's office to see where we could fit in with the county as well, which I think would be ideal to spread out.
Mr. Tejas, you mentioned that you're getting some calls, some referrals. Can you bring us up to speed on where we're at on our current advertising? Because I haven't seen anything recently in the newspaper or on the media or the radio. Is that continuing to get the word out in terms of where tags, how we can procure them?
It is. We continue with that. I'll ask the media folks to provide perhaps a one-page briefing on where we are, where we're headed. In fact, I got a note from our marketing firm, I believe yesterday, maybe the day before, mentioning that we had actually extended. We were able to extend through an agreement with, I believe, Channel 7 to extend our PSAs. So they'll go out through March, I believe, something like that. So, I'll have them provide all the details, and I'll share that with you.
Super.
Raymond, we were also going to look at what a baseline is or what kind of flow we should be looking at in terms of signups over time for a new toll road.
Yes, and we are doing that. And so what you'll begin receiving from me either next month or the month after that is really a breakdown of all of the transactions. So you'll see what we were projecting, what we're actually receiving. It was a bit early within a month period. You can't really use that information very well. So we'll probably wait maybe a month or a month after that. And then from there, subject to the board, of course, I would propose that I provide you all with quarterly updates so you can see the transactions and toll tag issuance and all that sort of thing. So you can get a feel for the growth, and hopefully as we ramp up, you can see that.
I'd ask Mr. Tejas to take a look at, in March, providing some sort of data, because with the partial month, I didn't feel like it'd be very, very helpful. So we basically have the early studies that looked at kind of the anticipated usage. Now we have actual data that can compare that, and I'm assuming what the board would want to look at is what was projected, what's actually happening, lane miles, how much is pay by mail versus toll tag. Because if we see there's a significant pay by mail, then we need to do a better job as a board getting the information out about the value of a toll tag and really how much more affordable it is compared to the pay by mail option. If it's a one-time pay by mail, it's not necessarily a big deal, but if you're going to be a regular user, pay by mail is not the best deal. It's really the tag option that is best, and we need to do a good work in that. So is there anything else that you would want to see Mr. Tejas put together other than kind of a high-level overview of what was anticipated, what we're doing, the various breakdown between the two types?
Just curious, and maybe it's not significant now, but down the road, do we have a number or a contact if people aren't happy or experiencing difficulties that they can report that back to us?
In terms of the toll tag experience?
Toll tags or issues on the toll lanes. In other words, if there are any issues, we want to get to them now rather than later. But is there a vehicle in place or a procedure in place to get that feedback?
Well, we have as you know, we created that separate website that deals specifically with this project, and peppered throughout there is the phone number for the RMA, the phone number for the Customer Service Center for NTTA for toll tag issues, and then also the number for, and these are all local or 800 numbers,
Okay.
For the pay-by-mail experience as well. So, yes.
Does somebody monitor those sites? I mean, let's say I go to the website and I file a complaint or an issue or just something, I'm unhappy with something. How does it get back to us or you?
Well, if it's a question or complaint or phone call to the RMA, then it comes directly to me.
At the website?
Right, through the website to me directly at my desktop.
There is nothing interactive on the website where I believe anybody can leave a comment. And, that's an interesting idea. Or not that I've seen, maybe we do. Do we have something on the website where someone can leave a comment specifically about the toll roads?
Not on the project page, but the project page, if you'll recall, is an offshoot of the RMA page itself. So the RMA page has a contact button. And
Good.
from there, and I receive emails on that fairly
Good.
frequently.
Okay.
Not always about the toll road, but about the RMA in general. So I do get those, and I do.
It may be helpful if we put something specifically on the Cesar Chavez page, on the toll page, that specifically relates to, as per Ralph's comment, if someone has a concern or a question, rather than that being filtered through the NTTA and coming back to us, I think it might be helpful if there's more of a direct route where they can reach directly to you and then the board. So perhaps if we look at putting something on the Cesar Chavez or the toll page question, and for questions or comments, and as a way to kind of get some feedback.
Absolutely, I'll add that.
Okay.
So I think we talked about next month. You're clear on kind of what we're going to be looking at, and will you provide that quarterly? So we'll start with March, and then we'll do it quarterly thereafter.
That's the intent. That would be my proposal, but depending on what the board feels next month, I can share it with you, and then from there we can see what the board would like to.
We
do.
can tweak it once we see the data.
Absolutely.
It's not on the agenda today, so we can't discuss it, but next month, can you update us on Representative Pickett's request in regards to the Purple Heart and
Yes, sir.
disabled American veterans utilizing Cesar Chavez?
Yes, sir. And I didn't have any usable data on that, which is why it's not on here, but I will bring it back next month. So that leads us to item 10D, which are options for the CRRMA's annual report. So this goes back to, as you may recall, and as actually I referred to under one of the previous items, there are various statutory requirements that we must comply with. One of those is the development of an annual report that is provided to the City of El Paso and to the Texas Department of Transportation. We comply with that each year. What we do, though, above and beyond that is we generally flip that compliance report into an actual annual report, usually a hard copy, glossy cover, that sort of thing that we distribute to the public. In discussions with the chair, I'm curious as to whether or not the board would like to see those hard copy annual reports again this year. And the reason I mention that is that a lot of the agencies that develop these annual reports are now moving to electronic reports instead of hard copies. By way of example, the City of El Paso, not only do they only provide electronic reports, they actually develop what is more like a website that provides all the annual report data, as opposed to perhaps like a PDF or something like that. So I wanted to get a feel from this board whether you would like to see us continue with the hard copy annual reports for the public, or if you'd just like for us to, rather than print any, we could just develop it in the same format and provide it on our website as we normally do, or if you'd even like to see us to move forward on an approach like the City of El Paso uses.
And I suggested to Raymond, just it seems like unless we're required to actually print
that
hard
was my
copies,
question.
that's just an expense that we don't need. I still have some annual reports from 3-4 years ago that I'm going to have to put in the recycle bin, and I hate to do that. So my suggestion would be that we don't do that unless there is an absolute requirement to do so. And then I guess for Raymond's, and so does anybody have any comments one way or the other there?
No, that was my question. Are we required to print out hard copy?
No, sir.
Good.
The compliance portion we comply with each year, and it has nothing to do with this hard copy. This hard copy really is for distribution to the public.
Got it.
And I don't think we necessarily need to go through the expense of having a separate web page. I think we could just have a tab on a particular web page and have the PDFs of those particular reports there.
Sure.
Easy to pull up at any time, and they go back several years going forward. Do we have all of the current annual reports as well as the strategic plans on the website as well? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Raymond, does anyone ever request a hard copy?
I don't believe so. In fact, the requests we get are normally requests for where they can find it online.
Okay. Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense to print them.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
And the last thing is, it's not on the agenda, strategic report. I believe it's every 2 years. When will the next strategic report coming out?
That
Mr.
one
Tess?
is this year, so I'll begin putting that together very soon.
Super. Any other questions for Mr. Tejas?
Yes, sir. Motion to...
Vice Chair Adami has made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Marquez has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned at 9:48 a.m. on Wednesday, February 12th, 2014. Thank you.